who've been there years. And then we're going to talk about sharing some really good tips for people thinking of moving right now. What we're going to do, top tips, what price points are selling best with any area property market. You've got the overall market and you've got micro markets inside the market. We'll talk about that. And anything else that we tend to go off on a waffle, Nat, because me and you can
waffle.
We can waffle. So quick intro. How do we first meet, Nat?
So I think it's nearly 13 years ago now, Perry. Yeah, a long time ago. You sold my first flat for me.
How mad's that? So good.
Yeah.
And all through that time, how mad is we've said in the past, and you've been very lucky because you've had the best estate agent ever.
Yeah.
Always helping you move. But we said in the past, didn't we, how much you're just obsessed by property. I label you a serial mover, much to Tom's disgust, that you get a bit itchy feet after a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, Nat, you'll be a great agent. We should talk about it. And it's got to a point where you're like, yeah, let's do that now because now's the right time. So welcome to the team. We're going to crush the area in a nice way. We're going to give people the Banstead and the surrounding areas the kind of service that we expect as clients ourselves, and you've experienced that as well. So what's in general, I know the discussions tend to be crazy, but in general, what's the market doing in Banstead and surrounding?
Well, like everywhere, it's fast paced at the moment. As soon as things are coming on, they're going quite quickly. But the sort of 3-4 bed semis and detached upwards are really in demand. They always are in demand here, and they fetch good prices for that. But they're almost going before they're hitting right move. They're at the stage where there's much more under offer. We've got 83% of the stock is under offer, which is incredibly high.
It's crazy high, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're chatting about that before we come on, weren't we? That I always look at oversupplied, undersupplied, and kind of normal markets. And because I love a bit of data, in case you didn't know, I just look at stats and I work out our own stats. And it's interesting that as an area as a whole, what we're sitting at kind of 73% of stock is under offer.
Yeah.
That's from 0 to multi-million pound properties in Banstead because the price ranges are so vast there, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that's really high for any market because you would look to have around a 50% under offer to for sale ratio.
Yeah.
Because that means that they're coming on, going under offer in a fair time scale, new stocks coming through, new properties are coming through. But that price point that you said, about 650 to a million, is at 83%, which is, I've not seen an area like that for a long time.
I think it's reflective of the type of homes people are after, really. In that price bracket at the moment, you're looking at family homes where there's a bit of space for teenagers, a garden for younger kids. I think a lot of the people are moving out from London where they might have a flat that's worth 500, 750 in London, and they've realised for a little bit more on the mortgage they can have more space, the traditional family home in Banstead for that. And there's no questioning that Banstead is one of the higher end price points for Surrey, but it's a beautiful area, and they've got the sort of housing stock that people want. The schools are great. Most of the schools are outstanding. There's also a lot of independent schools around here, as well as the links into the city and into the country if you want it. You can hop on the M25 and be anywhere, or grab a fast train and be in central London in 20 minutes. So it's a nice balance of all the things people really are after. Yeah,
because that's interesting. Because I was going to say, like, what kind of people, who's buying your Banstead, and you reckon it's, although there'll always be local upsizers and downsizers, but you think the majority is outsiders moving in, would you say?
Yeah, and I would say as well, a lot of the housing stock has moved with generation. So some of the larger houses that had previously probably been owned since the 70s, you're now finding people are downsizing from those houses. So with the next generation coming through, a lot of those have been coming and going very quickly. And there's a range, actually. There's some that need a lot of work that have been, going quickly, not to developers, but to families that are willing to do the work. And there's some that have been what I would call pimp to the nines, you know, full of gadgets, looking amazing, that other people want a turnkey, can walk straight into. So it's a nice, you know, variety, a nice mix on a large plot, in a flat area. There's a lot going for it, really, which is why I think they're turning over quite quickly. It's got everything a family could want, really, in the area.
I think as well, like that, obviously, rewind a little bit, but that's really interesting. So I remember, because you were brought up in the area, right? So you were brought up around Kingswood and Banstead Way, is that right?
Yeah.
And then you obviously bought your first property, I'm guessing, in Caterham at the time.
Because I couldn't afford to live around here then, no. Obviously, things have changed a lot since then. I've gradually nudged my way back.
Yeah, well, like you've been awesome in kind of strategic property moves. As much as Tom might do his head in at times, moving all the time, but you've really worked from that first masonette that I sold for you, and then you've come back after that. You came back to Banstead, didn't you?
Yeah, straight back to Banstead. In fact, half a road away from where I'm living now.
Yeah, and then you've gone up the property ladder. Now you'll be looking to move again and stay in Banstead. And was that always just because it was where you were born and bred, or was that because the kids' schools and stuff?
I mean, one of my dad's moved away, actually. He lives in Hove now. I've got a sister that lives locally, so it's nice to be local. And my in-laws live in Woodcote, Purley Way, so they're not far either. I just really like the area. It's a very safe area. And it's one of those high streets as well that's still got a community feel to it. You know,
it's got empty shops yet.
Yeah, it's got little supermarkets at either end, and it's not overdeveloped. And one of the great things about the area is that the properties, you know, have mostly stayed single dwellings. There's not been overdeveloped. There aren't a lot of blocks of flats up. So it's kept that sort of open space feel, which is quite unusual, I think, this close to London.
And it's because over the years, obviously, I've sold a good few in Banstead, many of them your properties, and other ones as well. But do you find people are like, I'm only one in Banstead, or I'd look in Banstead, parts of Chipstead, maybe a bit of Kingswood?
Yeah, it can be a bit of a mix, really. I think it depends what they're looking for and why. So generally with teenagers, they tend to go towards more the Banstead, Kingswood area, bits of Tadworth, because there's more public transport links. Chipstead's beautiful and the houses are beautiful, but you've got to want to be a taxi service if you've got teenagers there. So it tends to be people with older teenagers who are already driving themselves in some of the far-reaching parts of Chipstead. So I do think you're more likely to get a family living in, with younger children living in the Banstead area.
Yeah.
But people are very specific. They have specific roads they want to live on, and property stock type as well, because there are different styles of houses in the area. So you often get people say, what really is a high premium is anything Victorian or Edwardian, goes pretty quickly because they're very few and far between. And then lots of really beautiful 1930s detached houses as well.
And you touched on it earlier, as in like when you've got 83% of properties in that price bracket are, and I think it's really important for people when sellers go on the market or thinking of selling, is to go through what we've done today, just to assess, am I going into an overly competitive portion of the market? Because we know Banstead as a whole is highly desirable, but there's certain price points where there's more demand than others. And so if someone's watching this now and they've got a house that they're thinking of moving between 650 and $1 million with an 83% under offer rate, it's times like this where you might only be worth 650, but you could probably try 675 and you might get that bit of extra premium price.
Yeah.
So this is why I talk to a lot of people and advise that you can't value a house on paper. Like, it's not possible. It's based on supply and demand, what else on the market in a similar kind of price bracket, and you can be a bit more put your asking price a bit higher, maybe not overinflate the market and say, well, I'm going to try 700 potentially, but even though it should be worth looking at comparable 650. But the kind of low key strategies that you touched on, a lot of are selling before come to market. We had a discussion earlier this week where you've got a buyer desperate for the right detached house in Banstead, and they've got a good budget. They're they want to buy their family house, so they might pay, that kind of buyer might pay a bit more than the average buyer because they generally want to be in a certain road.
Yeah.
And is there, what kind of roads off the top of your head, putting a spotlight, but are particularly good at the minute?
So, well, an area that's particularly desirable is all around Longcroft Avenue, which is up near the Longcroft Clinic and near Banstead Community Centre, because that area there is really quick to walk into town. It's literally 2 or 3 minutes to walk into town, but it's set back enough that you're not, right on top of the high street. And the housing stock there is lots of 3, 4, 5 bed detached properties, and they're all a little bit individual in their own style. And people tend to move into them as a young family and not move out until they're grandparents. So they've always been, really hard to get hold of. But at the moment, even more so, getting a lot of requests for that area. A lot of requests. And similarly, a different type of property, but perhaps some might say more of a starter home or a downsizer home. The down near Pound Road, where there's lots of Victorian terraces. And they're really popular with people that want a bit of character in their property, and really beautiful houses. A lot of them have got exposed brick and really attractive. They're always sought after as well because they're so characterful with high ceilings and things.
Well, it's almost mad about when we're looking at the kind of the turn of the market where stuff's coming on, going under offer. We were looking at the difference between that, even that 1 to 2 million bracket was like 77% under offer, which is huge. But it's when you're looking up to 400, but there's less supply in Banstead at that level because it's not flat city, is it? There's not a lot of flats. Like Red Hill, not far down the road's got 400 flats, and Banstead maybe got 60.
Yeah, and in Banstead, what we would call a flat, actually, it's more apartment style living. So, you get the floor space of a house, actually, in a lot of these, they're bespoke built apartments, often not blocks of flats. And it's not unusual for them to be $500,000 for a 3-bedroom apartment because, that's the kind of living people in this area want. So although there are flats on the market up to 400,000 actually, and that was at 63% under offer, between this 400 and 650 bracket, you've actually got a lot of apartments included in that, as well as terrace housing, because of the security of apartment living. When people are downsizing, often especially women on their own, want to be in an apartment rather than in a house and have to worry about the externals of it all. And they've if they've sold a house for $1 million down the road, they want to be in a nice, large, safe apartment. Downsizing is not as easy as it sounds, I think, for a lot of people. When you build a 3-bedroom house, it's very hard to get that into a normal size flat all of a sudden. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that there's still a high turnover for apartments over 400 of the 73%, because I think the market around here would definitely be there for it.
Because the thing is, and you touched on that really important there, is for a lot of downsizes, it's not a financial driver. It tends to be a lifestyle driver. I've downsized people that have spent the same as what they've sold for. Like sold at $1 million and spent $1 million, but they've got no garden to maintain. They've got no stairs anymore.
Yeah.
It might be a mansion block apartment with a lift going up to their property, and then they're all the same square footage that they've just basically bought, but they just haven't got a house to maintain.
Yeah, I know even with my dad, when he downsized, he spent similar money, but he moved somewhere where he was nearer to shops so that he could tootle out and go and get what he wanted to. He didn't have to drive the car anywhere. So sometimes proximity to family is also part of the downsize, want to be in walking distance to the kids' school so they can walk the kids to school for their children sometimes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah. And I'm trying to make these Friday lives, we're bang on, we're like 15 minutes. And I like to, that was really good info, by the way. Thanks for that. Because you know the area way more than anyone at Power Bespoke, because you're sitting living there right now and children go to school locally. And I think that's really important as an agent. I don't think it's necessarily crucial I think I said on my last live, I think marketing and negotiation expertise is probably more important than local expertise.
Yeah.
But if, like you've got crazy good local expertise, great negotiation ability, because we've got our training, and great marketing, which you're a marketer yourself.
Yeah.
I think people that instruct you as our agent are going to get really incredible results, because you come here from an empathetic side as well. Being a serial mover, you know how frustrating solicitors can be at times.
You sound like a disorder, Perry.
Yeah. But on that point, given that you moved quite a few times, and yeah, you're right, I make sound like a disorder, didn't I?
Yeah.
You definitely move more than the average Joe, put it that way. I think the average people move every 7 years, I think, and it's getting longer and longer now.
I'm on about 3 years my moving average.
Yeah, that was that's when you get the itch. What would your number one tip to somebody sitting there now thinking, I would like more space, or really need to downsize? What would your kind of tip be to someone thinking of moving?
I think if you've already made the decision to move, you need to get a personally recommended team behind you. So you need an agent that either your friend has used and said, you know, they were really, really good. They really got it. They understood me. I could talk to them about anything. Or an agent that you meet and you click with and you think they're going to look after me. That's always a really, really important thing. But you also need to get a solicitor that somebody hasn't complained about to you, hasn't said, oh, they've not done this, they've not rung me. You know, just ask everybody you know for a couple of days, have you ever moved? What solicitor do you use? Would you use them again? And just things like moving companies, the same for moving companies, you know, any builders you need to come in and do a bit of handiwork for you before you sell. Just get a really, really personally recommended team behind you. And you should be okay. It's easy for me to say because I've always used you. So I obviously I've always told everybody to use you, because I've never had to chase you in my life, and you know how I love to chase things. You know, I'd be like, I'm going to speak to the solicitor before him. I'm get in there first. So you do need to be sure that, especially if you've never moved before, you know you can trust people. And also in the same breath, I think if you have moved before and you had a horrible experience, it doesn't have to be like that. You know, times have changed, and for example with us, I know personally it doesn't have to be stressful. Everyone says to me, why the hell do you want to move again? Why would you ever put yourself through that? I never want to do it again. But it's because I've been lucky. I've had an agent that's had my back, and I've always made sure I've had a good team behind me. So even when the worst has happened, which it has to me, I've had someone pull out on exchange of contract stay to me twice in a row. Mm-hmm. Actually, with your negotiation skills, I was able to buy a house next door, but one to my sister really quickly. I don't even remember that one. But I was in, heavily pregnant, and I was in within 6 weeks. So, with the right people behind you, you can have a really stress-free move if you're just willing to do a bit of research and make sure you click with them.
Love that. And that's the thing about the research in it, is that there's now so many different options as a seller. You can go with an online, pay them up front kind of estate agency. You can go with the people that have been on the high street for 40, 50 years, nothing wrong with those. You can go with a Nat who works with Power Bespoke, lives and breathes the area, really empathetic, really high service. So there's so many different options. Do the research to find out which kind of option is best for you. Yeah. And it's like I said to a client the other day, look, it's probably best you give that online pay up front service a try initially. And if it doesn't work out, come back to us and I'd love to help and take over. Because
people learn by mistakes, I say.
And I guess it's just about asking the right questions, getting a good feel for the agent, checking out their marketing plan. Phase one, as you say, is make sure you gel with the agent. Because if you're looking to work with the agency, potentially a brand, and you think, I've heard good things about them, but I just really don't like the guy sitting in my living room or girl, then that's a no-go. Don't choose them. You might have heard not so good things about the brand, but the person sitting in your living room, you think, wow, they seem really on it, and I could trust them. So first is the trust aspect in the research. Ask the right questions. On our website, there's a 16 crucial questions to ask estate agents before signing a contract. Leads on to the next one, I guess. Don't sign a contract. You should be with an agent that doesn't make you sign one.
No.
But my answer is really quite simple. Is just give Nat a call. Ultimately, if you're thinking of selling, thinking of moving, whether you're currently on the market and it's not going too well, because there are some of those at the minute out there. If you're not on the market and not sure what to do, just pick up the phone, drop Nat a message, drop us a message at Power Bespoke on our Facebook page, asking to contact Nat, and we'll help out the best we can.
Even just for advice, because sometimes you just need someone objective who'll say, yeah, that agent is doing their job. It's fine, don't worry. Or maybe we need to think of another plan for you. You know, it's not always going to be the answer. I'm not always going to say to people, oh, just come with me, you should come with me because it's not always about that. Sometimes it's about what is reasonable. Are they doing a reasonable job for you? Do you know?
The amount of times over the years that someone's rung me and they're kind of still tied into that horrible, I call license to be lazy, the kind of 16-week contract. And not really, I'm 4 weeks in and I've had nowhere near as many viewings as I was promised and blah, blah, blah. Is I've said, like change your price from 599, 950 to 600. Make sure you use the kitchen as your lead image. Change the description to this. And I get a call a couple of weeks later saying I'm under offer with them now. Yeah. And that's really nice because I know I'm getting recommended to that person going to recommend me. I didn't sell their house, but I had my advice helped them sell it.
Yeah, and also it's another potential buyer for a house we are selling. As soon as that's true, it's someone else for us to sell a house to, so that's great for us.
Yeah, love that. Yeah. Awesome, Nat. We're 22 minutes. That's perfect. Thank you very much for your time. If anyone needs any advice, give Nat a shout. Any questions, drop them in the comments because this will go out all weekend. And have a great weekend, everyone. And have a great weekend, Nat.
And you. Thanks.
Take care.